Well, hi, everybody. And we are coming to you live on today's live stream at our LoveWorks campus in Norman, Oklahoma. My name is Michael, and welcome now to our 36th episode. Number 40, Carolyn, is just around the corner, but this is episode number 36, and you are going to be in for a treat. Also, to remind you too, just here at LoveWorks, we believe that you are never too young to be a dreamer, and you are never too old to get started working on your dream.
Michael, well, you're right. 40 is right around the corner, but this week is 36. And we hope that this week our special guest is going to connect with you wherever you find yourself today, whether you are getting ready for school or you're like, I haven't thought about school in years, except for in the news. And they're going to inspire you to become the best dreamer that you know.
Absolutely. But Carolyn, today first, we are right now in back to school mode. Many of us are in back to school mode, especially being right now in the middle of August. I'll be honest, I don't ever know when the topic of education is not hot button. But things are definitely heating up here around LoveWorks as our team has been working really hard just on presenting fall programming options. And we're really excited to be able to say now that it's not just an opportunity that is localized here for students in the nearby area that are close to our campus. But because of technology, we have the opportunity now to reach students everywhere. So can you tell our viewers, Carolyn, about a few of those options that we recently just announced?
For sure. We're calling them our big three right now. And so we have applications open for 2 in-person programs. One is called Junior Leader Institute, which is not an online, that's a daytime program that's happening from 8 to 12. And then After School Leadership, which is in the afternoon. Those are online at loveworksleadership.org. You can apply right now, and the spots are very limited. So make sure that you jump on most likely after this call. And we do, Michael, you're right. We have an online opportunity that's available anytime, any day, and it's called At Home Leadership. And this is an online platform with weekly interactive lessons and activities, and it's all designed to build confidence and also help students discover their role in making the world a place that we all want to live in. And this was actually built through NextThought. It's a company based here in Norman, Oklahoma, and they're offering learning solutions through technology. So, Michael, I think it's a pretty big hint for who our guest is.
I think, Carolyn, that is a dead giveaway. So we're so excited to get into today's interview in just a few minutes. We also want to ask you, too, those that are watching, if there is a future guest that you would like us to have on Link Up with LoveWorks, please drop that name in the comment box below.
For sure. And while you're doing that, make sure that you also comment who you are. Let us know where you're watching us from today, what grade you're in. Parents, if you're with your students watching right now, let us know who you are as well. And we have a special question of the day. And this one's just for fun. You might want to take some notes down because hopefully people have some good answers. The question, Michael, is what is your favorite app to use for learning?
Wow, we have lots of learning apps. As you know, I have 3 small kiddos, so my storage space is filling up rapidly. But the one we find ourselves using right now quite a bit is Can Kids. And so that's derived from Khan Academy, and it's a free educational interactive app designed, it's a free one and designed for kids between the ages of 2 and 7. So we're getting lots of swipe time with Can Kids. How about you?
Lots of swipe time. I enjoy it. I was about to ask. I'm glad you threw in the age. I was like, is it too late for me? I like using an app called Flora, and this is not necessarily a learning app, but it's an app that locks you out of your phone. And so you set the timer. It disables your phone for, say, anywhere from 15 to a few hours if you wanted to. And you plant a little seed, like this little digital seed, and it grows over this time. And if you have to pick up your phone during that time, use an app, whatever it is, it actually kills the plant, and then it ends up in your timeline. So it tells other people that you killed a plant. For me, that's not personal.
I could see someone out there hearing this, learning about this with like fear and trembling that they might be locked out of their phone for a few minutes.
There's that too. I've found a couple workarounds, but no.
There's always a workaround. Well, thanks for sharing about that. I'm sure those of you that are watching have your favorite learning app, so drop that in the comment box below. Well, we're excited. We have just a fantastic guest today, and we just want to remind you just what our Dreamer and Doer format is all about. We really consider it just an honor and a real fortunate opportunity to be able to sit down with the guests that we do. And so we call them dreamers and doers, where you're going to get a chance to at least hear a dream story or two. And of course, as you know, if you really go after that big dream or goal or vision that you have, you are going to encounter obstacles and challenges. It's not just about that, but that's just part of the beautiful journey. And we hope by hearing these stories that they're going to encourage you to get from the place that you are today to the place that you want to be tomorrow.
And to warm you up for today's interview, we have a trivia question and a chance for you to win a prize. And so first person to answer this question correctly in the chat will send you a prize directly to your house. And the question is, what New York street is closely associated with the business world and stock market? What New York City street is closely associated with the business world and stock market?
Carolyn, if memory serves me right, we've been on a LoveWorks trip with students, one of our startup businesses, and you've walked on that particular street holding a warm cup of coffee in your hand.
That sounds about right. I think I
You
probably looked up and I was like, oh, really? This street?
Well, enough about those streets. Tell us what you think that street is in the comment box below. But let's get into our interview. We are excited for you to meet our dreamer and doer today, friend of LoveWorks. His name is Ken Parker.
Ken is the co-founder and CEO of NextThought, an education technology company based in Norman. As a first-generation college graduate, Ken deeply values education. After career chapters in aerospace and Wall Street technology, he helped co-found two startups, RiskMetrics, a financial technology group, and also now NextThought. Ken is passionate about using technology to make education more effective and accessible. He loves Oklahoma and is a grateful member of the Leadership Oklahoma Class 30. He and Carole, his lovely wife of 36 years, live in a log home in Noble. Their three children and their spouses live in Oregon and Norman, and best of all, they have 6 beautiful grandchildren.
Hello, Ken.
Hey, good morning, and thank you for the chance to be here.
Oh, it isn't.
Thank you for joining us.
And is that a virtual background, Ken, that we see, or is that the real thing?
These are actual polar pine logs shipped over from Finland, but assembled down in Noble, Oklahoma.
Very good. Way to keep it local here in Oklahoma. Ken, I'm sure we could park and spend the interview here, but you heard one of our questions earlier about learning apps. Do you happen to have an app or a learning app or two that you would recommend or you like to use?
I do. I love the Elevate learning app, which helps you develop a bunch of different skills. It has some of the best gamification I've seen in an app, and it's a great coaching and works you through math and English and a bunch of different types of learning. But then my favorite flashcard app I use every day is Anki, A-N-K-I. And I use that to remember books and authors and quotes and a few thousand bits of information that I want to recall. So the beauty of it is it's always with you, and you can learn whenever you have a spare moment, if your phone's not locked out, Carolyn.
I love it. That's so smart. Well, hopefully you guys wrote down those couple of suggestions, Elevate and Anki. I know that I'm going to check those out very, very soon. Well, I know when I was young, I didn't have any apps, but and before we get into your business endeavors and also your passion for education, can you tell us what it was like for you when you were growing up?
Sure. So I come from an agrarian background. Both grandparents were farmers. One was a grain farmer in Ohio, and the other was farmed poultry in Ohio. And so I am a farm boy by background, loved the outdoors. And so we moved to Chelsea, Oklahoma when I was 13. And we lived out in the sticks. And my brother and I lived a Tom Sawyer existence out in the country, and had tremendous adventures. But a real game changer for me growing up was in our small school at Chelsea. There was a teacher that transformed my life. His name was Ron Parker, no relation, but he was a phenomenal teacher. And he gave me access to a school computer that this was in 1979, I think. And computers weren't available hardly anywhere at that time. And one of the some of the school's money that they had, we called it Indian money. It was based on how many Native Americans were at your school. The school had bought a little desktop computer, and it was in a box because they wanted to protect it from getting damaged by the students. And Mr. Parker said, "Ken, go make it do something useful." He saw I was bored in the Algebra 2 class, and he would even open the school for me after school had ended. While he was running his bus route, he would let me work on that computer. Completely changed my life. That's how I got into computers, because you didn't have access back then anywhere to a computer. I'd read about them in magazines and dream about them, but I had no idea. And that was the spark that led to a career in software development and computer science. And it was because of a teacher that cared enough and invested his time and energy in me and gave me the opportunity. And so that was my youth.
Ken, thanks for taking us back just a few years. One of the things that I've admired about you, whether listening to you give a talk or listening to other podcasts that you've been on, you just seem to be just on a cutting edge of learning and thinking about the future. Where would you say that insatiable just hunger and thirst for learning comes from?
I was fortunate to be surrounded by people that modeled it. Both of my parents were learners, not in technology, but mom was always learning about health, food, and diet, uh, and dad was always learning about entrepreneurial activities, farming and building. And we always had lots of magazines and books that mom and dad would be reading. And then I was fortunate to uh, connect with a number of great teachers when I was growing up. And so having it modeled for me was one of the big things that pointed to, this is normal. This is how you roll. You learn and grow. And mom and dad, even now as they're approaching 80, they both still read and uh, learn new techniques, and they're constantly growing. And that's a model that I hope everyone pursues for life, because there's there's an old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And the neurology says that's a complete lie. That is completely inaccurate. Now, you can't teach an old dog new tricks if it doesn't want to learn. But the biology, the neurology is such that we can learn right until the day we die. Our brains have that plasticity, it's called, that we can change and grow and learn. And so it's something that all of us should focus on all the time. And I was just lucky to be surrounded by it. And it's one of my great passions, is learning and helping others learn.
So it sounds like there were adults in your life that played a really significant part of just shaping your future. And I love even that spark, that passion, and your teacher, Mr. Parker. I think that's so cool. And just hearing, like, I think adults, I say adults, but people have more opportunities like that than they know to impact someone's life, where it's minor. It's like letting a kid in and playing on a computer after school. Well, we're going to fast forward a bit. And you started a really successful company, and that was called RiskMetrics. And then you sold that to actually start NextThought. So can you walk us through this particular season of letting go of, this one dream and to pursue another?
Sure. So RiskMetrics was, we launched that in 1998, and a dear friend of mine, Ethan Berman, it was his brainchild. He was the one that conceived the idea of creating a quantitative financial risk management company. So it's what we now call fintech, a financial technology company. Well, that was Ethan's idea, and I was one of the ones fortunate to have the opportunity to join in with them. And so we launched RiskMetrics with 25 of us. There were 20 in New York, 2 in London, and 3 out here in Noble, Oklahoma on my ranch. And that was the launch of an endeavor that would grow over the next 12 years. We grew to 1,200 people globally. We had 20 offices all around the world, and we had 150 people here we moved into Norman at that time, up on OU's South Research Campus. So it was a phenomenal journey of growth and learning and mistakes and successes, and we sold it. And you ask about the transition. That was a tough transition, because after building it and being so deeply invested in it, we almost sold it a couple of times. And for quite a while, there was a resistance to do that. The time we finally decided to sell it, it was like the team had come to the realization that it was time for the next chapter, time to bring in a new playbook and some different talent. And so we decided that it was time for that transition. And then a dear friend and I, Jeff Muring, he and I and 3 other people decided to launch an education technology company called NextThought. And so we quit and launched. We quit RiskMetrics and we launched NextThought, and that was in 2011. So we're 9.5 years old now, and it has been a phenomenal learning journey. And we'd had enough success at RiskMetrics. We were kind of filled with hubris, where we thought we've got this entrepreneurial thing figured out, and we've solved the financial technology. How hard can education technology be? I can now answer that question in long paragraphs of how hard it can be. It's very different, and education, while we've all experienced education, so we think that makes us experts, my hat is off to the real experts that have spent time grappling with the challenges in education. And there is so much need and so much opportunity. And so we're thrilled to be working in education tech and figuring out, how do we use technology to make education better and to make it more accessible to more people.
Well, Ken, I think that is a great segue into where we want to go next, and what I believe a lot of our viewers want to know just more about. Ken, let's be honest. When you think of even just options that students are being presented with this fall, options range from in-person classes to virtual learning. And not all parents are overly enthusiastic about the virtual learning. And, I'm just curious, Ken, there have been a lot of course, unfortunate things that have resulted because of COVID-19. But I'm also curious about in the realm of education, is this possibly an opportunity for us to be able to rethink and reimagine educational pathways for our kiddos? In other words, am I too optimistic in saying that the best is just ahead of us and we're getting ready to experience something that could be really, really life-changing and transformative for our kids?
Yeah, very insightful question. And I think indeed there's a lot of trauma and damage and suffering that is coming from COVID. There is no question. Globally, this pandemic is really changing our world. And in fact, one of the observations I would make about it is COVID is not an event. COVID is to your point, COVID is a transformation. It's a transition into a new era that is going to have many new properties, some of which will be bad. But hopefully, if we have an appropriate amount of imagination and hard work, hopefully many of the changes can be positive. So the COVID transformation is underway right now, and it's not going back to the way it was in the past. The COVID transition has already gone on long enough that there have been billions of experiments that are running right now all around the world with how do we operate in a new way? How do we deal with the constraints that were thrust upon us just literally almost overnight? And so that transition is underway right now, and it's by no means done. A lot of the responses that we're seeing immediately are better than nothing, but they're suboptimal, I would say. So many of the online learning experiences that are being delivered this spring and this fall at schools are suboptimal. And they're suboptimal in that quite often online education is equated to a content transaction, where when I say we're going online, quite often all that means is we're going to put some videos and some text online and let you watch it and read it, and then let you take an automatically graded quiz, and we're going to call that education. And all the research, all the academic research and results show that that's a very low quality way to learn something, because it's information only. It's not doing it. It's not getting high quality feedback. It's not collaborating with others. It's not interacting with others. And so those are the kinds of things when we say we want to make online education more effective and more accessible. Those are some of the dimensions that I think we want to try to evaluate. We want to try to optimize so that when students are learning online, we're using the connective power of the devices, whether it's your mobile device, it's your laptop, desktop, whatever, but we're using that connective power to connect you not just with content, but to connect you with other people. And that is a different mindset for the person that is designing the curriculum, that is crafting the person that is crafting the educational, the instructional strategies and delivering it. That's a different mindset. And so I think, to your point, we're at the start of this transition. We're not in the middle of it. We're very much at the start of figuring out how do we use this online opportunity to a much greater effect than what we are today. And so that's where I think the big opportunity is for education in the future. It's being forced on us. We don't have a choice right now. And so it's forcing us to move online. And the tragedy will be if we don't really innovate and grasp the full potential of teaching and interacting and learning together online, then shame on us. And one of the I call it a generic question that I think is going to shape our future in powerful ways. And it's a question template that you can fill in the blank for whatever. And I think you'll see that the answers to this question are going to change how we operate in the future. And the question is, in order to achieve X, whatever objectives you have, in order to achieve these objectives, fill in the blank, do I need to invest the time, the money, the risk, the travel, the exposure? Do I need to invest all of those things to achieve that objective? And increasingly, the answer is going to be no. I don't need to invest the travel, the risk, the time, the money to achieve these objectives. And so it's going to be the creative answers to how do you achieve those objectives. That's where the most exciting change lies. And so that's on us. We should be thinking about how do we do a great job responding and reacting and adapting. And I'll share one of my favorite quotes. It's attributed to Darwin, but it sounds like it's more one of his disciples that came up with it, one of his students. But the quote is, in times of extreme change, it is not the strongest or the smartest that survives, but the fastest to adapt. And that's what's going on right now. The companies, the organizations, the institutions that adapt rapidly are going to be the ones that survive. In nature, there's a term for those species that don't adapt to change. It's called extinct. And we will see that in schools, we'll see it in companies that don't adapt well or don't adapt quickly enough. They will go out, they will cease to exist. And it's painful and tragic and sad, but especially so when it's avoidable. So that's a big challenge that all of us have in these times of extreme change is how do we adapt? How do we evolve? How do we retain the mission, but change the strategies that we're using to pursue it? And you all are doing a beautiful job. Like normally you'd probably have your guests in there, and instead we're all in different locations right now. And so you've adapted, you're pressing ahead, you're making it fun and engaging, and at least I think so. But you guys are modeling that sort of adaptation, and how do we optimize for this new environment? That I think is our moment of opportunity right now. That we can craft a future that has more access to education, that the minimum level of education that everybody has access to should rise dramatically because everybody's got a device. Almost everybody has a connection to the internet. And so how do we make that connection your gateway to exciting, vibrant, high quality learning resources and experiences?
Ken, I think I could spend at least another hour or so talking about that and making our platform better and more interactive for students. And so even just that, thank you for all the value you just gave and the encouragement that this is now on us. You know, like we may not be able to control all of the things that happen, but of course, you know, we can choose to take responsibility over the outcome after that. So I thought that was amazing. Thank you. I think Michael has a fun question about if you had to raise your kids over again.
Definitely. Well, I do, but Ken, I can't help to think about, though, you were talking about just the future. And I think there may be a few eager individuals that might be thinking, well, what is the future? What is to come? Or perhaps, what are some types of technology that are available to use that are out there? And little birdie told me you may have a piece of equipment with you. Would you mind sharing that with us and tell us a little bit more about it?
Well, I thought you'd never ask. Technology offers enormous potential for just about every area of our lives. And that potential can be good or bad. The same exact technology, uh, one phrase you'll often hear is technology's agnostic. It's neither good nor bad. It's really how we deploy it, how we seek to engage it. And there are many types of technologies that I think have enormous potential for education. And one of those technologies that I'm especially excited about, that is just at the dawn of its impact, is the extended reality technology, XR tech. And XR is kind of the catch-all for virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. And so those are distinctions of different types of extended reality. And if there's one word I would use that would characterize really what all of those technologies do, that word is presence. It causes our minds to imagine presence. Either we are present somewhere else or something else is present here. But this technology, through the digital simulation that it presents to our eyes and our ears and our touch, this technology creates this sense of presence for us, and the potential for education is off the charts. It is incredibly exciting. So the prop that I brought is my Oculus Quest headset. So I've just now entered a new 3D world that is immersive, it's expansive. My ears, the stereo hearing, my eyes, stereo vision. This device tells me that I'm somewhere else, and it does it in a very compelling way. This is the Oculus Quest. It's the current offering from Oculus, which is a Facebook company now. And for those that are paying attention, if you don't think that the virtual reality, augmented reality, if you don't think those are gaining momentum and about to change things in a big way, then you disagree with every single large tech company that there is. You look at every tech company, they're investing billions of dollars in this technology. And so this headset, while it's only $400, is a marvel of engineering, because the headset knows where I am in space. So as I move, the headset adjusts the view accordingly. It has a couple of 6 degrees of freedom controllers that, again, it knows with very high accuracy where things are, and it uses all of that knowledge to create a simulated world that is very immersive. And so the reason I'm so excited about this technology is it will allow us to place you in places that are too remote, too expensive, too dangerous. In fact, there's an acronym for teaching with this technology when it makes sense, and it's the acronym is RIDE, R-I-D-E. Jeremy Bailenson is the one that popularized it. If anybody's interested in this tech, I highly recommend his book, which is Experience on Demand. And he talks about the history and the potential for this technology, but he popularized this term RIDE, and it stands for experiences that are rare, impossible. You couldn't really do them in real life, or they're dangerous, or they're expensive. And sometimes it can be all four things, that you create that experience and you deliver it to anybody that has a $400 headset. Well, we spend a significant percentage of that just on a set of books for students. And books are fixed; they don't change. They're static. This thing is a gateway to other worlds, a gateway to experiences, and this is going to transform how we educate, because kids will be able to put that on. They'll be able to go for a tour of the Louvre, go for a tour of any place in the world, in fact. They'll be able to go down to the molecular level and see what a cell really looks like in 3D and look at the operations of a cell. They'll be able to zoom out and see the objects of celestial size or galactic size to better understand the nature of the universe. And so this sort of device is going to allow us in any area of education to do what flight simulators are over 100 years old. They revolutionized how we train pilots. And it was necessary after World War I, when aircraft were becoming a really important part of the military resources. They found that way too many pilots died when they were teaching them how to fly. So the first flight simulator was just a little mocked up cockpit with pulleys and gears that they would use to train pilots. Well, now we have very high fidelity simulators, cost millions of dollars, but you never touch a real aircraft until you've proven mastery in the simulators. And why wouldn't we do that for every area of education, where we can make it more engaging, more tangible, more visceral, more experiential? And so one of the exciting projects that NextThought is working on right now is a proposed project with law enforcement groups to teach police officers and expose them to mental illness, implicit bias. How do we reduce that? How do we identify it and review and reduce it? How do we practice de-escalation, especially with mental illness involved, which police are increasingly called to deal with? And so how do we expose officers to these sorts of scenarios before they are actually out in the field, exposed to it in a life-threatening chance or a life-threatening environment? And so this type of technology allows you to expose people to those scenarios, those environments, those decisions before the stakes are life and death high. And it's a very exciting, high potential way to deliver education, and it is coming fast. And here's one for the young people out there, the dreamers and doers. If you have any interest in being part of education and education technology, this is an exciting frontier. It is wide open right now. People are just getting started. They're just figuring out, how do we create new experiences? How do we deliver effective educational outcomes? All of that is a wide open frontier. So if you have any interest in it, don't use these just to play games. Sadly, that's the bulk of what all of the apps are for in the Oculus store right now. And most of the games are first-person shooter. Well, yeah, it's incredibly immersive and it'll get your pulse racing. When you hear a noise behind you and you turn and you see a threat that's right there on you, it's exciting. But let's go beyond that and use this technology for good, not just for entertainment.
Ken, I think you asked a really great question of like, why aren't we doing this across different fields? And I think it's very possible, and I love that technology is going to play a part in that, of making it, of course, more accessible and just creating quality training in a lot of different areas. And it sounds like, I love that you are so, of course, it sounds like you're in the future, but you're really in the now of trying to create something really incredible for development now. And so, what's a big dream that you're working on?
Well, I kind of did a spoiler on that. The dream is to use technology to make education more effective and more accessible. I'm a first gen college graduate, as my bio indicated, and I lead off with that anymore because that's why I'm so passionate about using technology to make educational opportunity more available to more people, because I've experienced the life transforming power of education, and I want to figure out how do we help more people have access to that. Not everybody has their Mr. Parker who invests in them and goes out of their way to help them. There are many, many wonderful teachers. There's not enough of them. And so, how do we increase the access to education? And technology is really the only scalable way to do that. There's not enough great teachers for everybody out there. There's not enough great schools. Not everybody lives in the right zip code that has these amazing resources. But almost everybody now has some sort of a mobile device or some sort of internet connected device. Not everybody, it's not perfect, but it's way better than anything else. And so, how do we use the scaling power of technology? That's my dream, is to use technology to make education more accessible to more people and more effective. And there's some really exciting technologies coming out to help with that. I mentioned one, the whole XR family of technologies, but big data, the Internet of Things, big data enables AI and all of the fruits of artificial intelligence, how we can now personalize our recommendations for you. We can personalize the content for you and what you need. And that's the type of learning that has been proven to be most effective for humans, where you have a personalized coach or a mentor or a guide. Again, if everybody had access to a wonderful guide, like many of the guides and coaches that you have at LoveWorks, if everybody had access to that, that'd be you'd get wonderful outcomes. There's just not enough of them. But increasingly, AI is going to offer at least a moderate coaching or better than nothing, and it's going to continue to get better. So there's enormous potential that technology offers to improve how we educate and increase the models that we can harness for better outcomes.
Ken, I'm so encouraged just listening to you share. And it was one of our hopes when we were bringing you on, just our podcast today and just this live stream is to, be able to paint just a picture of just of the possibilities. And so thank you for just being just life-giving in that kind of way. We might not all have a Mr. Parker in our lives, but can we have you today? And so if you had to go back and give your either middle school or your high school self one piece of advice, what might that be?
It's always risky to talk about changing the past. If you don't hate the current, then be careful. But I know one thing that I regret from my middle and high school. I would advise myself, invest in some things that you don't value right now. Things that I did not value in middle school and high school that I now deeply value are things like language skills. I thought English was for sissies. If you couldn't handle math and science, then you'd study English. And how ignorant I was in that regard. But study language skills, written, spoken, debate, incredibly important for any endeavor and in the future. So that's one thing I would say, invest in that, value that. Another thing would be leadership. I never was interested in leadership whatsoever. And it was only later that I learned that leadership's a very teachable skill. It's not you either got it or you don't have it. It's like many other skills. And you should aspire to leadership for the right reason, which is not to boss people or tell them what to do or get your way. Leadership is something where you're part of a group and you help that group achieve great things. In fact, I'll butcher it, but Lao Tzu has a quote about leadership that is beautiful. He said, the best leader, people barely know he exists. When his work is fulfilled, when his work is done, his aims fulfilled, the people say we did it ourselves. And I think that's a neat view of leadership where you're part of a team helping them to achieve great things together. And you're basically serving that group for great things to happen. So I would say study leadership. And then the last one I think I would tell my younger self is history. I've had to play catch up in my education in a number of areas, and history was one. George Santayana said the quote, he who will not remember the past is condemned to repeat it. And there's so much wisdom to learn from history. And so those would be some things I'd tell my younger self, pay attention and invest in those heavily, language skills, leadership, and history.
Well, Ken, I hope there was a lot of note taking in those 3 nuggets that you just dropped for us, or tapping and typing into our smartphone devices. Ken, as we begin to wind down this interview, we want to encourage anyone that is watching to drop in a question for Ken. We're going to bring Ken back at the very end for a couple of questions. So submit those when you get an opportunity. And now, Ken, we call this our last minute link. And really, this is an opportunity for you to link it all up together. And Carolyn has her stopwatch somewhere. So I think she's going to pull it out. And we're going to give you, Ken, 1 minute to share whatever is on your heart to be able to encourage the big dream inside those that are watching and listening. So, Ken, are you ready?
I am ready as I'm going to be.
I know you are, and set and go.
Great question. So 3 thoughts. First, decide what you want to achieve with your life and do it. Life is incredibly short and precious. Invest your attention well. Don't squander it on mindless activities. Decide and do, and then help others, just like LoveWorks does. Second, get uncomfortable in a good way. A well-lived life does not happen when you're comfortable. Maximum growth, excellence, and peak achievement only come when you're uncomfortable. Success takes hard work and intense effort, not comfort. Third, take care of your health. Pay attention to the big 3, eat healthy, get good sleep, and exercise. So work toward a well-lived life with these 3 things. Decide what you want to achieve and with your life and do it. Get uncomfortable and take care of your health.
Whoa, that was literally 1 minute. That was amazing. So, Ken, I've been writing notes down throughout this entire interview, but I think I could have written down just that last minute and had some just great advice for my life. And so just to recap, decide what you want to do and then do it. Get uncomfortable. That's the only way to actually succeed in life. And then also take care of your health by eating well, sleeping well, and also exercising. Those are so important. Thank you, Ken, for just enriching our lives in more than one way today, in ways that we can apply to our own lives, but even a charge to what we can do for our community and for people out there. And so we're going to give you just a quick and short break. We're going to ask all of our viewers, please drop your questions in the comment box for Ken, any burning questions you may have. And then we're going to cover a couple of events that we have coming up.
Carolyn, I was very excited to see how you were going to unpack that last minute link. You did a good job.
I'm glad I took notes.
Well, as questions are coming in, yes, as you're right, Carolyn, we do have a really exciting event. And it's not an event that we've ever planned before, but it is, we kind of think it's a cutting edge event where it's a virtual fundraising dinner event for Loveworks. We're the beneficiary, but it's in partnership with Master Chef. So Carolyn, can you share just a little bit more about that opportunity?
For sure. We're really, really excited to be partnering up with some master chefs across the nation. And so it's a virtual fundraising dinner where the food is coming directly to your house. And so it's a meal kit that has 4 dishes that have all been curated by master chefs in Boston, California, Texas, and of course in Oklahoma as well. And in these food meal boxes, they're partially prepared, but they're ready for you in a live production. The chefs are actually going to teach you how to finish making that food so you can enjoy it in one beautiful night. And so the way that you can get your box right now is by signing up at loveworksleadership.org. You can order your boxes there, 2 count, 4 count. If you want to do more, just reach out to me.
Carolyn, it's still early in the morning and you are making me incredibly hungry.
Oh, I can get into the menu if you really want me to.
maybe next week. Well, Ken, want to bring you back for a couple of more questions. Again, thank you so much for your time today and helping to make us better. Ken, a question that I've been thinking about has been and I want to put you in a situation where you're thinking, I've already done this before, but thinking about raising kids. If you had to do it all over again, what might you be thinking right now in regard to options that you would be considering and or even pathways?
Yeah, that's a great one. On the one hand, I'm thrilled with how our kids turned out. They're amazing young people, no, amazing adults. But there are things I would do different if I had it to do over again. One thing would be I'd invest more time in their activities. I think I made some cats in the cradle decisions. If you're familiar with I don't remember the artist on that song. I just remember shedding more than a few tears thinking about how rapidly our kids grew up, and you miss those moments. So I now coach young entrepreneurs, especially, don't neglect the important people in your life, especially children. You don't get those moments back. So I didn't do terrible, but I would definitely reprioritize. And a great question that a clarifying question I now use to decide, will I remember this activity in the next 5 years or 5 months or even 5 days? If it's going into a meeting, it's answering email, or it's going to a childhood event. The question is incredibly clear. Which one will you remember in the future? It won't be the one that I often chose, which was getting that last email out or building a presentation of whatever. So use that question if you're ever struggling with, should I go to my child's drama recital or t-ball game or whatever else. Ask yourself that question. And another investment I would do differently is to find the very best school earlier, the very best, and I won't even say school, I'll say educational opportunity for our children. We homeschooled for a while. My wife, Carole, our kids are the beneficiaries of her love and attention. She's a teacher by training, so we homeschooled for a while. We did a private school for a while. But if I had to do over again, there are now some amazing schools that equip young people with a powerful blend of mindset, of self-management and self-learning and technology-enabled personalized learning. One great example is a school that our daughter started a chapter of it. It's Acton Academy, and our daughter started one just south of Norman called Evergreen Academy, and it has all of those properties. And so when you think about equipping your children for this uncertain future that's rushing toward us, standardized test performance is not going to serve them well for grappling with the latest technology that's upending this or the pandemic that's devastating that. How well you do on standardized tests is not going to be your best preparation to deal with that kind of a challenge. So think about schools that create this self-motivation, intrinsic motivation for learning and adapting, because that's what the future is going to require.
That is so good. So I've got another question for you. This comes in from our audience, and they ask, if I don't have access to VR, how can I experience something similar?
That's a great question. There's a layered answer to that. The first one is if you have a smartphone of any type, then you've got a VR headset. If you go to just bring up YouTube or Vimeo, or there's hundreds of VR apps, but bring it up on your phone. If you go to YouTube and search for 360 VR, and pick one of the videos. If you haven't done it, you'll see that when you're watching the video and when you move around, it changes the perspective of what you're looking at. And so that's kind of level one. That doesn't require anything other than a smartphone and one of the streaming video services, or go get one of the apps. Again, there's hundreds and hundreds of VR apps out there. So that's one free. If you have a phone or a family member has a phone, you're set up. A second thing, and I should have brought the prop for it, you can get, it's called Google Cardboard is the model, but like we give them away at trade shows. It's a little pop-out accordion style with two lenses on it, and you put your phone in cardboard mode, and it shows two stereo images. And when you look at it through these little lenses, it looks 3D. It's essentially like a Viewmaster. If you remember the 75 years old this year, the Viewmaster that you used to advance, well, that's all it was two stereo images. So you can do that on your phone. And we give those little pop-out things away. They're $3, probably even cheaper. It's just two plastic lenses and a little rubber accordion. That's another way. But it's an inferior experience. You can kick it up a notch with a little headset that fastens on your head, again with your phone. That's the Google Cardboard, but it'll have a headset that you pop your phone into, and that's more immersive. That's better. And then you probably, at that point, if you really want a better experience, then find somebody that does have one, that does have a headset. There are a lot of libraries that have them that you can check out. The Innovation Hub down at OU, they have an Edge Lab, they call it, where they have like 4 tethered headsets that are, and they'll show you different experiences, let you practice and get experience with it. So there's a whole range of options. And then, like I say, if you save all of your summer money up from your summer job, you can get one of the Oculus Quests for $400, or get a used one for a little bit less. But there's a lot of different opportunities. But that's a great question. Just get creative on how you get access, but don't give up.
That is good, Ken. I like that last part. Don't give up. I think that's so important for us to hear that. Ken, this is fantastic. Carolyn, I feel like our show notes will be more populated than ever after today's interview.
I agree.
Ken,
lots of good nuggets.
Absolutely. Well, Ken, once again, just want to thank you for helping to make our viewers and us better. We are definitely better for it.
Well, thank you. It's such an honor to be here and be associated with LoveWorks. I so admire the opportunities you all are creating for young people, and the teamwork, the entrepreneurial activities, the leadership, the authentic, meaningful learning that you're encouraging. So appreciate what you all are doing, and it's an honor to be with you today.
Well, thank you for saying that, Ken. Really appreciate it. Well, there you have it, everybody. We hope that you are leaving today reimagining the possibilities of education. I got to be excited that I feel more just encouraged and motivated than ever. So, Ken, that was fantastic. Next week, we want to make sure that you mark your calendars. And we have a new friend of LoveWorks that we're going to sit down with, and his name is Kane Monroy. In case you have not heard of Kane, in 2011, at the age of 9 years old, Kane spent his summer vacation building an elaborate DIY cardboard arcade in his dad's used auto parts store in East Los Angeles, and it's called Kane's Arcade. Kane's handmade cardboard arcade inspired a global movement to foster creativity in kids. It's now led to the annual Global Cardboard Challenge. And today, Kane now is an active member of the 2-Bit Circus Foundation Board. He's a freshman heading into college. He enjoys traveling. I heard Adidas sneakers and inspiring creativity in kids everywhere. So you definitely don't want to miss that.
I'm really excited. And just a reminder, you can visit loveworksleadership.org right now to apply for our in-person programs and also access our online anytime at-home leadership course as well. You can also order your boxes for the Elevate dinner coming up with Master Chefs.
Absolutely. And remember, everybody, that real leaders, they don't blend in, but they stand out.
Dream big.
And do your dream.